So let's start with a question. What's really hiding down there under miles of ice at the bottom of the world? For decades, you hear these whispers, strange sightings, secret missions, and things found that, well, they just shouldn't exist. And that's what we're doing today. We're heading to the most isolated, most mysterious place on the entire planet, Antarctica. We're going to follow this trail of breadcrumbs, right? From supposedly declassified missions to some truly shocking eyewitness stories. And we're going to see just how deep this rabbit hole really goes. I mean, think about it. Antarctica is just a land of extremes. It's the coldest, the driest, the highest continent we've got. It's so hostile to life that most of it is a total blank spot on the map. But what if that mystery isn't an accident? What if it's intentional? Yeah, the official story, right? It's a beautiful, pristine wilderness just for science. But then there's this other story, the one you hear in whispers from military whistleblowers, the one you see in strange satellite photos that pop up online. And that story, it suggests something absolutely monumental is being hidden from every single one of us. So let's get into it. Because you see, the deeper you dig into Antarctica, the weirder the stories get. And it all seems to start with these structures. Things that, based on everything we know about history, should be completely impossible. Yeah, in the last few years, these satellite images have started leaking out, and they appear to show, well, they look like pyramids poking right through the ice. Now, sure, most of them get written off as tricks of light, shadows playing games, but a few of them, they just stand out. They look a little too perfect. Their angle's just a bit too sharp to be a random act of nature. And the claim gets even more specific. One of these things, apparently, has 4 sides that line up almost perfectly with north, south, east, and west. I mean, that kind of precision, it just screams intelligent design, doesn't it? Which brings us to the big, impossible question. Who built it? Antarctica is supposed to have been a solid block of ice for millions of years. This is where it gets really weird, because this brings us to one of the most compelling pieces of this puzzle, these ancient maps. First, you got the Piri-Reis map from 1513. It looks like it's showing the northern coast of Antarctica. Then, you've got the Orontius-Phineus map from 1531. This one shows the entire continent. You can see mountains and rivers, and no ice. Remember, these maps are 300 years older than the official discovery of Antarctica. So how is that even possible? Well, there's this one pretty radical theory from a historian named Charles Hapgood that tries to explain it. He called it Earth crust displacement. The basic idea is that the entire crust of the Earth could just shift, sliding over the molten core below. And if something like that happened, say 12,000 years ago, it could have violently dragged a warm, maybe even inhabited Antarctica all the way down to the South Pole, flash freezing an entire civilization and whatever they built, like pyramids, under miles of ice. Now that is a wild theory for sure, but it gets even wilder when you start listening to the stories from people who have actually been there. Take this retired Navy flight engineer. He only goes by Brian. He tells 2 absolutely incredible stories. First, back in the 80s, his crew flew over a no-fly zone, somewhere they weren't supposed to be, and they saw this giant, perfectly round hole carved into the ice. Then, in '95, his crew gets sent to find a team of scientists who just vanished. A week later, the scientists reappear right back at their own camp. Physically, they were fine, but they were in this state of catatonic shock, just silent. Something they saw out there terrified them beyond words. And then, you have the account from a Navy SEAL. His codename was Spartan 1. He says that on a covert mission back in 2003, his team found a massive 8-sided structure. And what he describes, it's just mind-blowing. A giant door, 23 feet high, that opened with just a gentle push. And inside that was a comfortable room temperature, even though it was 40 below outside. The walls, he said, glowed with the soft green light and were covered in hieroglyphics that weren't Egyptian, they weren't Mayan, they were something else entirely. This wasn't some ancient ruin. It was an active, working piece of impossible technology. So you see the picture that's being painted here, right? You take the pyramids, you add the ancient maps, you layer on these whistleblower stories, and what you get is a really powerful narrative. It's a story of a lost civilization, of unbelievable technology, and a massive ongoing cover-up happening right now at the bottom of the world. It is an incredibly compelling story. But this is the point where we have to stop and ask the really hard questions. Because here at the Synthetic Paradox, we don't just tell the story, we peel back all the layers. And that means we have to look at the evidence that, well, that doesn't quite fit this thrilling narrative. So let's take another look, a much, much closer look. Okay, let's start with a classic. This image from Google Earth. You've probably seen it. Cropped like this, it made the rounds for years as proof of a crashed alien spaceship. And yeah, it looks pretty convincing until you do one simple thing. Zoom out. When you see the full, uncropped picture, the explanation becomes painfully obvious. It's just a big piece of rock or ice that broke off the cliff face and slid down the mountain. And you know what? That same idea, our minds playing tricks on us, applies to this other famous image, the alien face in the ice. This is a textbook example of a psychological quirk called pareidolia. It's the exact same reason you see a face in the clouds or a man in the moon. Our brains are just hardwired to find patterns, especially faces, even when there's nothing there. All right, let's tackle the big one, the pyramids. Turns out, for geologists, there's zero mystery here. They have a name for these things, and it's a nunatak. Basically, when a massive glacier flows around a mountain peak, millions of years of freezing, thawing, and wind erosion can literally carve it into this sharp, pyramid-like shape. So yeah, they look artificial, but they are 100% natural. Okay, but what about those incredible eyewitness stories? I mean, the accounts from Brian and Spartan 1 are absolutely riveting, I get it. But that's the problem. When you go looking for any kind of proof, you find that they are just that, stories. Neither of these individuals has ever come forward with a full name or a verifiable service record. And without any secondary evidence, no other witnesses, no documents, no photos, they have to remain what they are. Amazing stories, but not proven facts. And finally, those ancient maps. They really do seem like the smoking gun, don't they? But the consensus among map experts and historians is, well, it's very different. The belief is that these maps are showing Terra Australis Incognita, which literally means the unknown southern land. See, for centuries, geographers just assumed a giant continent had to exist in the south to balance out the landmasses in the north. So these maps weren't secret surveys of a real ice-free Antarctica. They were just beautiful, theoretical drawings of a place they imagined. So look, when you lay it all out side by side, a completely different picture starts to form. Every single piece of evidence that points to this grand conspiracy, it has a pretty grounded, logical, and scientific explanation. The story of lost civilizations and ancient technology is, without a doubt, captivating, but under real scrutiny, it falls apart. So, does that mean Antarctica isn't mysterious? Absolutely not. In fact, I'd argue the truth is way more fascinating than any of the fiction. See, the real secrets hidden in Antarctica aren't alien bases or pyramids. They're things that, honestly, are even more mind-blowing. We're talking about the climate history of our entire planet, perfectly preserved in ice cores that go back 800,000 years. We're talking about strange life forms that thrive in lakes buried under miles of ice, totally cut off from the rest of the world for eons. That's the real treasure down there. The true history of our planet, frozen solid. And that's what we're all about here. The pull of a good conspiracy theory is powerful, no doubt about it. But what we find time and time again is that the actual truth, the stuff you find through real, careful investigation, is almost always more amazing than any story we could ever make up. Which really brings us to the question we should be asking. With something like 98% of the continent still completely unexplored under the ice, what incredible, maybe even world-changing scientific discoveries are still down there, just waiting for us to find them? I'd really love to hear your thoughts on that one in the comments.